Tekking Super Tumble! Oh, yeah! Okay, guys, it is a good day. It is a good week to be a One Piece fan, but in particular, it's a good week to be a Franky fan. Oh, yeah, this is a week where Franky is particularly super! Remember that? That was kind of like a running gag that Oda did for a little while when Franky was first introduced. Like, he would have this thing where he's like, this week I'm particularly super, or this week I'm not so super. You know, that was like a thing he did for a little while, and then he just kind of stopped doing it. But whatever, it doesn't matter what day of the week it is, what day of the month, what year, doesn't matter. Franky is always super. And we are about to get, chapter 996 spoilers coming up, but we are about to get a full, serious, balls-out fight between Franky, geared up in his giant personal Megazord, the Franky Shogun, up against a member of the Tobiropo, one of the strongest members of Kaido's crew, one of the Flying Six, Sasaki, who could probably turn into some kind of giant armored dinosaur, alright? This is the first serious fight that Franky is going to have that's going to test all of the, equipment that he's built, all the upgrades he's made to himself, the Franky Shogun itself, since the time skip, okay? Because I want you to think about this. The first time Franky busted out the Franky Shogun was at New Fishman Island, not New Fishman Island, against the New Fishman Pirates at Fishman Island. There might have to be a New Fishman Island by the end of this series, because Fishman Island might not survive. They might have to make a new one, but that's 100 or few chapters in the future. At any rate, he busted out against Icarus, right? And so he didn't really have to, though. It was even said at the end of the arc, after the battle was over and the Straw Hats were like doing epic victory posing, Robin just kind of looked at the robot and was just like, did you even need to use that? It seemed like you could have defeated, Icarus without it, right? But Franky's like, it's a giant Megazord, Robin! I gotta bust it out, right? That's just how it works. So we had that. Franky used it at Punk Hazard against Baby 5 and Buffalo. Now look, Baby 5 and Buffalo, they're strong enemies, and, they had a really cool, combination thing going on there with, Buffalo's, gyro, fruit, his propeller fruit, and then Baby 5's Buki Buki no Mi. So they had a lot of really cool combination attacks, but they're not, the strongest members on Doflamingo's crew, right? It wasn't like Franky was going up against Pika or Diamante or Treble or anybody, right? And so we got to see the resistance, the armored capabilities of the Franky Shogun there, resisted a missile, and the Espada Girl. The only attack that really damaged the Franky Shogun in that fight was when Baby 5 turned into the Sickle Girl, and then Buffalo spun her around really fast, and that was the one thing that was able to damage it. But, that wasn't they were strong, but they weren't super strong, right? And then after that, Franky fought against Senor Pink at Dressrosa, but he didn't have the Franky Shogun there because that was on the Sunny, and they took the Sunny to go to Zoe, right? So Franky defeated Senor Pink all on his own with just his BF-37 body, his super body, right? And ever since then, we haven't had it. We have not had Franky at his strongest in the Franky Shogun up against a seriously strong, one of the strongest members of an entire group in an arc. Until now. He's going up against Sasaki. It seems to be the case that Oda wants to do the Tobiropo versus the Straw Hats, like we had Ulti and Page 1 against Nami and Usopp. That fight, I hope it's not over. I hope they go back to it, but I really hope we just get Franky and Sasaki, no more distractions, no more cutaways, no more switch outs. Franky fights against Sasaki for a chapter and then, oh no, Big Mom burst through and the fight got interrupted. None of that, please. Can we just get this? Also, this is very topical because I'd be remiss to mention this. Over in Kumamoto, Japan, which is in Kyushu, this is Oda's hometown, Kumamoto, they have erected a beautiful bronze statue of Franky himself in the mightiest of mighty super poses. My God, Artur tweeted that, and I retweeted it man, this statue is magnificent. It is super. It is going to stand for all time. In thousands of years from now, when humanity isn't even around anymore and aliens discover our planet, they're going to find this damn statue and they're going to think to themselves, this was whoever lived here on this planet. They're gone long ago, but this was their champion. Nay, this was their god. If there's one thing the proof of humanity could further on throughout the stars. They take this statue and bring it back to their home world as the only surviving relic of humanity. If that was the Franky statue, I'd be okay with that. I'd be fine with that. It'd be like, yeah. And they're just like, they worship this mighty bronze god. But by the way, in case you're curious, because I was kind of curious, like, were they just building, like, Franky Statue in Kumamoto? Like, Franky specifically? I mean, I'm not complaining, but I'm like, what's up with this? There's actually a whole plan for the city of Kumamoto to erect statues of all of the Straw Hats. Okay, so they haven't done all of them yet. They have Luffy's and Sanji's and Franky's. I think Chopper's was just revealed a couple weeks ago. Franky's was just done a few days ago. And Usopp also has one there in Kumamoto. Because Kumamoto, it's not just the hometown of Oda, but also Oda donated a lot of money to help the Kumamoto, the earthquake relief effort back in 2016. So this is like the city's way of giving thanks to Oda by building these statues of all the Straw Hats at key like landmarks all over their city. Okay, so that's a pretty cool thing. I would also prefer if there's like a statue of Oda himself, but Oda doesn't appear very often in like, television interviews, so I don't know how he would feel about having a statue of himself. But whatever, if he's cool with it, that'd be really neat. Like have all the Straw Hats all over the city and then Oda like right in the center. That'd be some pretty cool stuff. So you could go check out the link in the description below to the website that actually reveals like the scheduling of when all these statues are supposed to be revealed. I think they were all supposed to be unveiled this year, but then COVID happened, so there was some delays. I think all of them are scheduled except for Robin, Nami's, and Zoro's. I don't think are set yet on when they're going to be unveiled, but they're all being worked on, and I think the locations where they're all supposed to be placed have already been like revealed. So yeah, this is gonna be really cool. If I ever visit Japan, I gotta make a stop over at Kumamoto just to see all these statues and do like a little sightseeing tour. That'd be great. But okay, so yeah, this is marvelous. All right, so how is Franky going to go up against Sasaki? How's this fight gonna go down? Okay, it's definitely a setup that Sasaki, he runs the heavily armored core division in the Beast Pirates. A bunch of these smile users that have all really tough defenses, like the porcupine smile or all the like the rhino smile and all the exoskeletons that the insect smiles have. And then you have Sasaki himself, okay, that's riding on top of this giant rhino with his throne. So you can imagine Sasaki's devil fruit, whatever it's going to be some kind of dinosaur that has a really high defensive spec, okay? Triceratops is great, Ankylosaurus, whatever you want, any kind of dinosaur that has a lot of like heavy plating on it, maybe spikes coming out, that's gonna be awesome, right? So how's that gonna go up against the Iron Pirate Franky Shogun, okay? Is the Shogun going to get some serious battle damage here? I'm thinking it's going to. I think for this battle to truly be epic, remember back to the Franky versus Senor Pink fight. At the end of that fight, Franky was kind of beat up. He was kind of like the Terminator. He was like Arnold at the end of that movie. Not 100% Arnold when all of the exoskeleton gets like burned off and he's just like a robot, but no, Franky's eye was like, it was revealed. He got the red Terminator eye. There was sparks firing off at him. He was looking kind of rough at the end of that battle, okay? I'm thinking we're going to see something like this. In fact, I am not completely throwing out the idea. Now, this would be very sad at the moment, but it would be epic. And keep in mind, as long as Franky's alive, he can always, he can always build something new, right? If the Franky Shogun meets its demise, at least if the, the Battle Franky Model 38 meets its demise in this battle right here, that would be like the battle itself would like show its like wear and tear on it, and maybe Sasaki's like ramming into it with his horns or whatever. It's like ripping off the arms and the legs, and Franky has to like hit the ejector button or use like some self-destruct mechanism on the damn Shogun. It just blows up. That would be sad. You're like, no, we lost the Shogun. It's like the Mary all over again. But remember, as long as Franky's still around, he's like, okay, well, I'll take what I learned from this fight, and I'll incorporate some dinosaur armor specs into the battle of the Iron Pirate Franky Shogun Battle Franky Model 39. I feel like we should get to 40. We're so close to 40, right? Franky before the time skip was Battle Franky Model 36. Now he's 37, and the Iron Pirate is 38. So if, the Iron Pirate gets destroyed, or at least damaged enough that Franky has to scrap it, that could always happen too. Like, the Iron Pirate gets so beat up, it can no longer function, so Franky has to take, like, the scrap metal, whatever was remaining, take it back, work on it, and then modify it. So it's like, okay, I used some of the original materials from the Iron Pirate, but I built a new one. It's the Platinum Pirate or something like that. I made something even stronger, even better, and it has like spikes and like dinosaur, aesthetics, to it because he fought against a damn dinosaur, right? I like the idea of Sasaki being a Triceratops just because like the face armor, like the shield and everything. Like, just imagine that. Imagine Sasaki turning into a giant Triceratops, like, even larger than probably a Triceratops was, like, in real life, back during when dinosaurs walked the earth. This thing is freaking huge, right? And it's got a giant armored plate on its head, and so any attack that Franky fires, general left, or he fires the rocket launchers, any attack just bounces off this damn thing's shield. Like, it's not even getting close to hurting Sasaki, right? And then Sasaki just charges, and then, maybe Franky's like, all right, time to test the defense of the Iron Pirate. Full defense mode! And the pirate's like, goes into like a turtled up like tank, like we can take it mode, and freaking Sasaki just boom! Just slams right into it, and the horn just, like, pierces the Shogun, It's like back in Power Rangers. Like, remember the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers? Because the Zords got messed up in those episodes every now and then. Every now and then you'd have a monster or something that Rita made or Zed made or somebody that just wrecks the freaking Megazord, right? And wires and sparks are flying off of it. It's gonna be something like that, right? So Franky might, like, take a hit, and he's like, oh, man, it shredded right through the Wapo metal of my Iron Pirate. That makes me mad! You don't like Franky when he's mad, okay? So maybe he has, like, some other weapons, some other tools, some other, things he installed into the Shogun that he never really had a chance to show off before. One funny thing about the Franky Shogun that's kind of a running gag is that every time Franky tries to bust out a big high-octane attack, it's not from the Shogun, it's from himself, okay? Like, he's like, I'm gonna do the radical beam, and then he just opens up the hatch and does the radical beam that way. Or he's just like, I'm gonna open up my hatch and then fire off my Gatling gun that I have on me, not the one that's attached to the Shogun itself. So the Shogun does have, I think its main thing is, like, defense. It has a really high amount of defense to it. It's also got the Franken sword, and it's also got its, the general cannon, the one that basically, as Franky said, taking the Gao cannon from the Sunny and moving it into a mobile, like, on-land-based weapon, okay? So those are the main things of the Shogun that we know about so far, but there might be some other stuff, too. Considering Franky accidentally blew up Vegapunk's lab almost twice, I'm thinking Franky might have taken, he's like, well, Vegapunk is the greatest scientist in the world, right? Yeah. And he installed a self-destruct button in his lab? Yeah. So therefore, if I want to be just as much of a great scientist and engineer as Vegapunk, I gotta install a self-destruct button in my Iron Pirate, right? Like, that's what has to happen. You like my little hair bob, my little antenna? It's great, it's great. So it might be something like that. I don't want to see the Franky Shogun blow up, but it might be like the final attack. It might not even take out Sasaki. That might be a thing where, like, maybe Sasaki fights in his normal form or in his hybrid form, and Franky has a chance to bust out the Franken, and we get to see, like, a battle that way. And then Sasaki goes full dinosaur, like, impales, like, gores the Franky Shogun. Franky just barely avoids getting hit. And he's like, ah, crap, well, I'm sorry, Pirate Shogun. I love you, but I can't. I have to eject. He hits the ejector button. Franky flies out, and Sasaki's what? He's like, chew on this. Boom! And the whole Franky Shogun just erupts, and Franky lands, like, super strikes a pose, big fireball behind him, and he's like, I'm sorry I had to give you up, but I'll build you better anew. And Franky's getting ready to walk away, and then all of a sudden, like, the Terminator music plays up, like, dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. Sasaki, like, rises out of the flames. Maybe he's bleeding, maybe he's missing an eye or something. Part of his horn got blown off or something, and he just walks out of the fireball in his hybrid form, and he's just like, is that all you got? Cracks his dinosaur knuckles. Franky's like, oh, we're doing, okay! Franky doesn't really have sleeves. I mean, he does sometimes, but he rolls up his sleeves, and he's like, all right, we're gonna need to go full power into this, right? And so Franky starts busting out radical beams and stuff. I'm wondering how damaged Franky could really get. Like, for example, one thing I've always been curious about, maybe you guys can weigh in on this, Franky's arms. Okay, does he still have regular arms, like flesh and blood arms, or are his arms like 100% cybernetic? Because I'm feeling like maybe even like before the time skip, his arms were 100% cybernetic. He just took the skin, because when he got his skin blown off in Karakuri Island, right, you just saw it like mechanical, like everything was mechanical on the front of his body. We know his back is still organic. We know he has a brain and everything, but I was wondering, is it like the Pacifista where, like, maybe 80% of Franky's arm is robotic, but the rest of it is, organic or whatever? Or is it just 100%? I think it's 100% just robotic. And I think there's way less of Franky that's an actual human than we think it is. You know, his back, his brain, you know, maybe his balls, you know, but the rest of it, I mean, we know he doesn't have a stomach. Like, everything here is, like, robotic. He's got a, you know, fridge where his stomach should be, right? Yeah, he's got robotic eyes. So, yeah, once again, I really don't know how Franky modified himself like that. I'm not really sure. He must be the greatest surgeon on top of being one of the greatest carpenters and engineers and scientists, to be able to do all that stuff to himself over the years. So I think, like, in theory, Oda could get very brutal with this fight. And I know this is messed up, because Franky is my favorite Straw Hat. He's pretty much my favorite character in this story, right? And so it's kind of messed up to be like, yeah, I can't wait to see Franky get, like, seriously wrecked by Sasaki, right? But, I mean, that would be a really cool fight to see, like, you know, the sparks flying everywhere. If, like, Sasaki uses his sword, his, like, razor-edged sword to, like, slice Franky's arm off, and his arm gets all destroyed, and then Franky, like, oh, boom, and punches him right in the face. He's like, well, you took one of my arms, I'll take your face. Bam! And he just punches into it. And maybe, like, the armor on Sasaki is, like, so ridiculously tough. Like, even with Franky, with, like, his iron fist, when it slams right into Sasaki, maybe Sasaki will get hurt. Like, his organic, like, dinosaur shell will begin to crack. But, like, the iron on Franky's fist will also, like, it'll break his, like, robotic fingers. It's like, wow, you really are tough. Holy crap. You know, that almost, like, knocked my freaking hand off, right? So it'll be something like that. It'll be so brutal. And at the end of it, as long as Franky's still around, he could, you know, make himself a better cybernetic arm. He can build himself up more. I know that Franky said at Sabaody after the time skip, he's like, this was my first major upgrade to my own systems. It's also probably going to be my last. This is armored me! You know, that was like his big declaration to Robin, I think. You know, this is my last, you know, major upgrade. But who knows? I mean, he could still be called the Battle Franky Model 37. It's just like, all right, I lost an arm, so I gotta put a new arm in. I'm sure he had to, like, fix his eye after Senor Pink, you know? So he can make modifications, but he's not gonna make maybe any, like, super big, like, change his whole body around anymore. I mean, he might, who knows? Like, Franky might just decide, you know what, this is cool, but I'm just gonna turn into a giant robot from now on, right? That's just gonna be my regular body from now until the end of time, right? So, yeah. It's going to be very, very brutal here. We're going to probably see the full array of Franky's arsenal. Literally everything that we've seen up until now, you know, like strong right, you know, rocket launchers, the nipple lights, like every attack that Franky's got in his repertoire, you know, it's not fresh fire anymore, it's Franky Fireball, you know, the radical beam, of course. The radical beam is probably going to meet its limit here. I could see it. I could see him blasting off the radical beam like this is like a freaking laser, like from a pacifista. This has to hurt him. And freaking Sasaki's either gonna, like, I could see two possibilities. Either him tanking the beam with his dinosaur shell, or, like, bouncing the beam back. Like, it hits and it, like, fires it off because it's just so damn tough. You know, I don't know if that makes sense in terms of, like, physics or whatever, but whatever. I mean, it happens, right? Okay, it's anime, right? So I think the radical beam is definitely gonna meet its limit here with Sasaki. If it does do any damage to him, it's not going to be the finishing move like it was with Icarus. The radical beam up until this point was a lot of times Franky's big finisher. You know, if you get hit with this thing, you're going down. I don't think, did Senor Pink take a straight-on radical beam? I can't remember if he did. I remember Franky used one to, like, destroy the factory, but you can imagine how much cola that freaking takes up to use a radical beam, so he probably can't fire them off in succession. But I can't remember if Senor Pink took one, like, head-on and, like, tanked it. He might have, I'm not sure. But if that's the case, even if Senor Pink did, I'm definitely sure Sasaki can resist that, alright? It's probably not even going to, like, it might wound him, he might be surprised, but it's not going to take him down, right? And so we're gonna have to see some new techniques. Like, Franky might have a weapon in his arsenal that he's like, man, this was kind of an experimental thing that I had time to, like, work on. Vegapunk maybe didn't even crack the code. Keep in mind also, when Franky was at Karakuri Island and he was working in Vegapunk's workshop, that was Vegapunk, like, decades ago. That was before he left Karakuri to go work for the world government. So the materials found in that laboratory are probably not where Vegapunk's at right now. So there might have been some kind of weapon or some kind of device that Vegapunk was working on 30-something years ago that just the basic fundamental blueprints exist in his lab, and, like, in in his modern day lab at the world government, like he's perfected it, but back then it was just like, you know, I'm not really sure how this works. That might be something Franky has. Like, this was just, you know, a prototype that Vegapunk made. I did my best to improve it, but I'm not a genius like Vegapunk, right? You know, Franky's pretty smart, but he's not like Vegapunk levels, okay? Then again, he did make a Megazord, so you know what I mean? You know, he's up there, but he's not quite. Maybe Vegapunk, they say Vegapunk is 500 years ahead of his time. Maybe Franky's like 100 years ahead of his time, right? That's fair, right? You know, he's 3,700 years ahead of his time. No. So, some final epic attack. This is reminding me a lot of One Punch Man, like with Genos, where it's just like, I think the reason Genos was made a cyborg was just so he can get wrecked in every fight, and he could get constant upgrades, but it's like, man, he's just getting ripped to shreds in this fight. How many times can we rip apart Genos to the point where he's still alive? Like, you question whether or not he's, even as a cyborg, he's still alive. It might be something like that with Franky. Franky's like, alright, you know, the radical beam didn't work, I'm out of rocket launchers, I'm out of bullets, the fresh fire's not melting you, the Franky Shogun's destroyed, and Franky's on the ground, and he has a moment, like Franky in his fights, he always tries to stay like that optimistic kind of like professional wrestler kind of attitude that Franky always brings to the table, right? Even when he's looking like he's down, even when it's looking like his opponent has the one up on him, he's still like, you know, bring it on, brother, we still got this, we still got a fight, I'm gonna have a drink with you after this, right? With Senor Pink, for example, right? This might be a moment where Franky's down and it's looking like, ooh, he has to kind of like, man, if this stays up, I mean, I'm super and all, but if this keeps up, this guy might actually kill me. Like, you know, I'm a cyborg, I'm pretty tough, but he is like shredding through my defenses with his armor and his horns and his hockey. You know, this is rough. And this might also be the battle where Franky realizes, I didn't even get into the discussion of hockey yet. You know, obviously, Sasaki's going to be armament hockey, like 100%, like advanced Ryuo, whatever you want to say it. Sasaki's going to have, in terms of at least the Tobi Roppo, the strongest armament, because that's like his whole thing. I mean, I'm sure Who's Who and Black Maria, I'm sure, and obviously Ulti, they got really high-spec armament hockey, but I think Sasaki's going to be the highest, you know, beyond everyone else, okay? And so, this might be the fight where Franky's dealing with hockey, and he might have some weapons to deal with, like a counter hockey, you know, mechanism or something, but this is going to be it where it's like, man, after this is over, if I survive, I need to really, you know, factor in armament hockey into my next, you know, my arms and the next Iron Pirate that I make, or whatever invention comes after this. I need to make something that could be just as strong, if not stronger, than armament hockey. You know, it's like science versus nature, you know? Any fans of philosophy out there? I know we're kind of skewing the subject matter, but it's going to tie back in, so don't worry about it. I think it was Nostradamus. I mean, this has been mentioned throughout history. Nostradamus, I think Thomas Aquinas, you know, even all the way up to modern day philosophers have posed this kind of idea, and it really hasn't, you know, you can pose the idea, you can have theories, that's like philosophy, but nobody's really come to a serious conclusion yet, so I guess I'm going to throw my hat into the ring here. I mean, I'm not really qualified, but I can say it. I'm just going to say the quote from Nostradamus, and I remember it pretty well. It's, can giant laser cannons defeat a giant heavily armored dinosaur? You know, they've dedicated entire college classes, whole seminars to answering that question. But I'm just gonna go for it. I'm gonna say yes, if, and only if, the giant laser cannons in question are powered by Coca-Cola. You know, I'm not gonna drink this. I've said this before. When I was growing up, my dad worked for Coca-Cola, so even to this day, like 15 something years later, we still have like a bunch of Coca-Cola products all over the house. So this is pretty old. This is Bobby Labonte. Bobby Labonte Coke. Okay, cool. He was a NASCAR driver. He might still be a NASCAR driver. I'm not really stay up to date with NASCAR. I'm sure Franky does. All right, I'm getting off on a tangent here. Point is, though, can Franky's science defeat Sasaki's dinosaur? And I'll leave that up to you in the comments section below if we're going to see where this is going to go. You know what? At this point, I hope this is the big Chapter 1000 reveal. You know, if you want to like maybe set up the fight next chapter and then have a few chapters just doing other stuff, Chapter 1000, Oda's just going to give us the whole balls out fight between Sasaki and Franky. I don't have any problem with that. I don't have any problem with that at all. Big revelation about the Will of D. Big revelation about Eam cutting over to the world government. See what's up with Sabo. See what's up with Vivi. Nah. Nah, just give me a Franky Sasaki brawl. I'll be happy. I will be happy. But at any rate, thanks you guys for watching. Get pumped, get excited. Senku needs to show up on this. Freaking Franky's down for the count. He's about to be defeated. Then Senku just pops in from the Dr. Stone universe, and he's just like, all right, I'll work together. We'll modify you. We'll do something. And then they both work together and create a giant anti-dinosaur cannon. Yeah, there you go. All right, well, have a good one, everybody. This will be Tekking, signing out. Super! I'm not sure if I can answer that question, but I'm going to give it a shot, and I'm going to say yes. Definitively yes, right? Duchess, I hear you outside. Duchess! Can giant laser cannons defeat giant dinosaurs?